Namaskar, I Vishwarupa Rath welcome you all to Uday India Digital. Today, I'll talk about the Wagner rebellion in Russia, its reasons and aftermath. In the late evening of Saturday, that is June 23rd, local time, a coup attempt led by Yevgeny Prigozhin, the commander of the Russian Wagner mercenary force, crumbled. Prigozhin has left Russia as a result of an arrangement mediated by Belarus President Alexander Lukashenko. Thereafter, the Russian Secret Service has abandoned the mutiny investigation it had launched earlier in the day against the Wagner chief. Unverified rumors claim that agreement calls for the dismissal of Valery Gerasimov, chairman of Chief of Staff, and Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu, as well as the transfer of Wagner to Africa. On Friday night, Prigozhin launched a coup with 30-minute video in which he blasted the military leadership of Russia and directly addressed the pro-NATO wing of the Russian ruling elite. On television on Saturday morning, Russian President Vladimir Putin accused Prigozhin of operating on behalf of NATO without specifically naming him. Wagner troops announced their retreat later Saturday night after taking control of Rostov-on-Don and surrounding area of Moscow. His abrupt retreat makes it evident that he did not receive the level of backing he anticipated for successful coup. What gave Prigozhin the idea to start his coup? First, it is clear that his disputes with the Russian military and political machinery reached a boiling point. There is proof that the military had enough of Putin's continued support of this thug, who was contemptuous of the military and had a nasty mouth. While to a certain extent useful, his efforts in Ukraine also hampered the trained commander's ability to handle the conflict in a professional manner. One might easily assume that Prigozhin tried the coup to avert retaliation. Now, what holds in the future for Prigozhin and his associates and what Putin will do is to be seen. Given what is already known about Prigozhin's insurrection, notably the fact that roughly 3/4 of the Wagner declined to take part, it seems likely that Putin was aware of the scheme well in advance and permitted it to proceed for personal reasons. The majority of Russian political establishment publicly backed Putin throughout the episode. Those who did not are almost certainly known and can anticipate uncommon but conceivably avoidable deaths in the short to medium term. Prigozhin's reputation as a leader is thoroughly tarnished. Simply killing or imprisoning him might have resulted in becoming a martyr, especially among his heavily armed mercenary army. He is currently a traitor in exile, with virtually no troops. Now, if the Wagner Group is permitted to continue operating in the future, it will function more like a completely integrated part of Russian security services than like a separate entity. Putin already asked Prigozhin to do so, but he declined. Prigozhin's antics, which have sparked numerous disastrous Ukrainian counterattacks intended to profit from the chaos in the Russian camp, must be used to the fullest extent tactically possible. The Ukrainian armed forces have increased their efforts over the past 2 days, but with significant losses and scant gains. The extent that Prigozhin's numerous inflammatory remarks and deeds over the past few months have been a psychological operation, it is largely evident at this time that he wasn't joking around. He was obviously given free rein by the Russian Ministry of Defense, who took advantage of the predicted Ukrainian responses. The Wagner gang conducted a coup for the following reasons. He might have been counting on a military breakdown in Russia to seize control atop a wave of discontent and demoralization. This conveniently explains many of his previous comments criticizing the Russian army's efforts to quell the Ukrainian spring onslaught. the frequent debunking of Prigozhin's anti-Russian Ministry of Defense talking point that only Wagner brings victory probably influenced his timing. His position as a warlord and his disproportion at contribution to Russian military effort were dwindling in front of his eyes. It's also evident that if the regular Russian military had been defying Wagner for the past few months, they had very good reasons for doing so. Prigozhin needed to be closely monitored and controlled, since he was just as harmful to Russia as Ukraine. With this, I wrap up this edition. Stay tuned for latest updates.